Tags domination, sensory deprivation. On the outside, half a foot of water was submerging Naruto's crossed legs. On the inside, shit was going fucking insane. Die! Screamed the Kyuubi, and its claw slammed down where Naruto had just been, then swept sideways and slammed into him as he jumped away. Careening into the endless black expanse of this part of his mindscape, Naruto briefly reminded himself that this was the monster that had single-handedly sacked the entirety of Konoha, twice. It was obvious why. He landed, stuck himself to the knot floor, and punched as hard as he could, but the Kyuubi just punched right back, and again it was either go flying through the emptiness or get detached from his legs. How to make the Kyuubi? A dash of huge, a dollop of ginormous, a cup of fast, and a few tablespoons of raw physical power. Add in a sprinkle of almost indestructible and mix well. Thank Kami, it doesn't really have a way to let out all its chakra, or else I'd be massively fucked. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. He shouted, and then there were 400 of him all charging back at the monster, crying things like Rasengan. And buffeting wind. And multi-shadow shuriken. The attacks crashed into the Biju's fur, and seemed to just piss it off more than anything. Naruto noticed that the Rasengan were making dents, unlike everything else, but the dents were so damn tiny that they weren't doing anything. The fox roared, and swept its tails around in a twirl that vaporized clones in the hundreds. Stop your hiding and face me. It roared. Kami, you're dramatic. Fine. The real Naruto shouted, summoning another 100 or so in a gaggle around him. The Kyuubi's eyes turned towards them as they all shouted at once, big ball Rasengan. The gigantic wave of blue slammed into the Kyuubi, combined momentum more than enough to bowl it over onto its back and send it skidding backwards across the emptiness. Ha! Naruto taunted. Take that, you overgrown. Oh, you're not even hurt, are you? The fox looked up, eyes red with rage. The numerous pockmarked holes across its skin were hissing, but quickly began to disappear as smoky chakra whisked away into the dark. Okay, need more penetrating power. Oh, how quaint. You and your special jutsu that you spent so long training for. The Nine Tails opened its mouth. Here's a glance at what real power looks like. Red and blue spheres began to coalesce. Oh shit. The Byakugan bomb charged far faster than Shikaku's had, coming rocketing almost immediately towards Naruto. Sure, it wasn't quite as big, but here not as big meant only the size of the heads on the Hokage monument. He could have dodged, but that wasn't what this was about. Help me out, guys. Naruto shouted, reaching above his head and building up a Rasengan. He charged it to the size of the big ball, then even larger, and as his clones joined forces it grew until it was almost the size of a small house. Then Naruto flexed his fingers, and adamantine chains wrapped around the whole thing. Wrecking Rasengan! He shouted, taking hold of the chains and spinning the whole thing in a circle around him. Batter up! He slammed it into the oncoming Byakugan bomb, and was able to knock it off its predetermined path, launching it upwards and sideways and away. It exploded in the air, sending a shockwave that staggered both combatants. The shadow clones clapped and whooped, one shouting home run. The Kyuubi just looked surprised. My turn again. Naruto grinned, holding out his hand. Hey asshole, guess what? My body's out there sat perfectly still. What do you think it's doing with that time? Oh, not more of your damn senjutsu bullshit. The fox charged up another attack. A razor-whirring sound emerged as Naruto built up his own technique. Both fired. Between them, the Byakugan bomb collided with the Rasen Shuriken. Neither technique technically won over the other. The Rasen Shuriken punched straight through the Byakugan bomb like it wasn't even there, continuing straight out the other side unhindered. The giant black-purple ball was similarly unaffected, powering onwards like it hadn't hit anything at all. The main difference was, Naruto jumped out of the way. The fox didn't. It howled as the jutsu punched straight through its lower jaw. Naruto winced at the sound. There was no rage there anymore, just pain. And the Rasen Shuriken just kept going. Naruto could see it emerge from the other side of the Byakugan's body. The Kyuubi shuddered, and then collapsed, heaving breaths as its paws splayed out on the knot floor. Buddy? Naruto called out to it. You still, its eyes snapped open. Using its tails to help prop itself up, it slowly brought itself back to its feet. Pain. It growled. You think I'm afraid of pain? Because that's all you're causing me. I am a being of pure chakra, fool. You could shred me to nothing and I could merely rebuild myself. There is nothing you could possibly do to cow me. Naruto shrugged. Well, alright then. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Raisin Shuriken Barrage. The Kyuubi's eyes widened. Naruto, and 20 more of him besides, all began walking slowly forwards. A Raisin Shuriken was in each of their hands. Not all Senjutsu enhanced, of course, he'd split all his sage chakra between himself and 5 or so clones, but all the rest were perfectly normal, still perfectly murderous jutsu. Naruto's eyes were hard. The fox's were dilated wide, and shivering. Slowly, it took a hesitant, involuntary step backwards. When Naruto saw that, he sighed again, and dropped his technique. All right, boys, that's enough. We're a bigger monster than the monster now. The clones popped, and Naruto shook off his hand in mild pain. Wait, we're done here. Naruto replied. Unless you wanted me to continue? He left the statement hanging, walking back towards the cage. Fine. The Kyuubi called out after him, trying to regain some composure. You can clearly take the chakra anyway. You'll be able to. Oh, I'm not in here to take your chakra. Naruto called back over his shoulder. You what? You said you wanted out, right? Naruto looked up to the pillars. How do I open these things? Is it like a keyword? Or the Kyuubi shook its head. Hold on, what are you doing? Why did you just? Naruto looked back and smiled, sadly. Look. You're a prisoner. A prisoner in my body. You've been trapped in me for 16 years for a crime you commit while you were literally being mind-controlled, and you've spent whole lifetime stuck with other people before that. People who hated you for no good reason. That's not okay. He scratched the back of his head. I've wanted to release you ever since we first got talking. I was just worried what you'd do if you got out. That's what the fight was for. Now I know that if you try and hurt the people I care about, I can beat you. So I can trust you to leave. You have the strangest definition of trust I've ever known. The fox shook its head. So that's it? I'm free? Well, Naruto grimaced. Look. If you tell me right here that you want out, then I'll let you out. Yes. I'm not finished. He held up a hand. But I do have a request. I'd like for you to stick with me. For at least the next few days, or maybe weeks. Well, why would I ever choose that option? The Bija deadpanned. Oh, I just figured you'd maybe want to save your little brothers and sisters. The casual remark shut the fox right up. Sasuke and Hinata are amazing at so many things. Naruto chuckled. But they are terrible at lying to me. Something's got them and everyone else spooked, something they're trying to keep from me. Added to that, Pain's dead, but we still don't have the 7 other beasts back? And they suddenly ship us off to a boxed canyon in an island in the middle of nowhere to do our Jinchuriki training? Bull. Someone other than Nagato wanted the bijou, still has them, and is looking to finish the collection. Ha! The Kyuubi tilted its head. I thought you were a dumbass, but that was pretty sound logic. Oh, ha, ha. Naruto rolled his eyes. Point is, if I ditch you into the wilds now, odds are you're just going to get hunted down like your family were, and all this guy needs is a Sharingan. You think I'm safer staying in you? Oh, hell no. I'm immediately going to go pick a fight with whoever's doing this, so not safe at all. But we're way stronger if we work together. And I can't honestly say we're really teamworking unless you at least have the option to say no. So? The fox came up to the bars and looked at him. I can leave any time I want? Just say the word. You've told me you can do it without killing me. Even now? Right this moment, if you say so. The The QB looked down at him for a long time. Then it started chuckling. You are by far the stupidest, kindest, craziest human I've ever met. It held out a clawed fist. Partners? Naruto bumped his fist against it, grinning. Partners. All right then. Drop me some chakra, I'll give you KCM, and we'll go get this son of a bitch. Behold. Kisame shouted. My merging with Samahata. My ultimate form. I kinda can't observe much, but I'm sure it's very impressive, and Sasuke was defending again, and now it seemed that Kisame was coming at him with some combination of blistering taijutsu and arm spikes. Their speeds were comparable again, how fucking convenient, and Sasuke took a few punches to his lightning cloak, trying to adapt to the unorthodox new style. Not to mention, his chakra was painfully low, the cloak was absolutely exhausting, and the other techniques he'd thrown out all meant that he was teetering around 15% and would drop to nothing in 1 or 2 more seconds. At this rate, he would wait a minute. Sasuke frowned and thought things through. His chakra reserves were conveniently just now getting really low, check. His opponent had entered a dangerous final stage, check. At the current status quo he was about to die, check. That thing was happening. That thing that always happened when he got right to the end of a fight with someone important, the darkest hour bit. Okay, so let's skip to the end of that. How do I get to the part where I win? Based on previous conflicts, the obvious solution was to do the most reckless, stupidly genius, Naruto thing he could think of. So he cut his lightning cloak. Kisame's next attack shook his sword and sent him careening backwards across the canyon. The much-needed breathing space also meant that Kisame had all the time he needed, ultimate exploding chakra-draining shark bomb water bullet. He roared. Oh come on, that can't be a real jutsu. Probably is in the manga. Sasuke was vaguely aware of a giant mass of water moving towards him at blisteringly high speeds, but didn't particularly mind. Higher stakes were good. They made the coup de grace that much sweeter. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Sasuke stated, barely remaining conscious as he dropped to almost 100th of his chakra. 5 more of him appeared in a line beside him. He activated his bracer, and one by one, threw out each of the 5 swords he had to his clones. As one, with barely enough chakra to toast a slice of bread between them, they charged. Hiramakiri, the twin sword, and Shibuki, the blast sword, were both swung together at the oncoming wave, the former releasing all the chakra that had been stored within it over the years, while the latter consumed every explosive tag on its reel. The resulting explosion was deafening, lit up the entire valley, and Kisame's technique crashed into it and was forced outwards. The rest of the Sasuke continued through, and Rado, the thunder swords, were both swung at Kisame's neck. He caught them both, but that meant his hands were occupied. Further back, Nuabari, the sewing needle, was thrown into the air. Jumping up behind it, Kabutowari, the helm splitter, was swung. It hit the back of Nuabari with a perfect ring, and the needle was projected at a significant fraction of the speed of light down towards its target. It pierced through Kisame's breastbone and went right out the other side without slowing down. Finally, the real Sasuke charged up, jumping and bringing round his sword with a yell of defiance. Kisame had already popped the clone who'd swung Rado, and moved to defend himself, but found that he couldn't bring up his arms. The clone who had been holding Nuabari grinned, as he tugged on the wire stretching through the shark man and to the sword. Sasuke had found, experimenting after events in Suna, that it could manipulate more than just puppets. Kisame looked at his opponent and grinned. Heh. Well played. Sasuke brought around Kubikurabocho and severed Kisame's head cleanly at the neck. Naruto opened his eyes. Then shot up out of the water, shouting EEW. Yuuu, Kami, that's freezing, what in the fucking, damn it wet trousers, there was nothing. No light, no sound, no feeling. Just nothing. Many would say that such absence of input would be the only way to achieve true enlightenment, true inner peace. As far as Hinata Hyuuga was concerned, it was incredibly boring. All right, enough build-up of dramatic tension. Let me back out there. But you can have peace, the emptiness said. You've finally given up on your revenge. You can rest. Fuck peace. She told it. I want to kick ass and kiss my boyfriend. There was a pause. Well, technically he's not your boyfriend, but go off, I guess, said the emptiness. Alexa, play Strong and Strike. And Hinata could feel again. She gasped aloud as every sense came flooding back to her all at once, after days of being unable to feel anything at all, and the chill of the air was on her skin and sound of flames was in her ears and Tonari was stood in front of her looking shocked and hello you her fist flashed out, and that black stuff slid across in front of him to catch the punch. She stuck herself to the floor, shifted her weight forwards, and pushed, and a shockwave blasted outwards as he was pushed back through the air, stopping to float almost 100 meters from her. You were dead, he said, more confused than anything else. Medically. How did you? There was a crackling sound. Hinata looked down to see more opal spreading over the hole in her stomach, and in fact her right fist, which, through contact with the black shield, had been practically disintegrated down to the knuckle, was growing a shell back too. She stood back up and smirked. Because I'm Hinata Hyuuga, she told him. Fuck you, I can do whatever I want. He scowled and charged more energy blasts. She jumped upwards, and the green laser tore through the ground beneath her, and he readied another blast, but there was a flash and a feeling of release from between her shoulder blades. The next blast was fired, and again she rose above it. And the next, and then she was at a higher elevation than him. Ha! She muttered, looking at the great white wings that had sprouted from her back and were beating steadily behind her. You know, I forgot how much I missed having these. She swept her wings back and dove, then leveled out into a charge, beelining for Tonari. She was so fast now, the energy beams were simplicity itself to dodge, and hey, since these wings are detached, I can use my arms for hand seals now. Chidori sharp spear. She made a flyby, and he swerved left to avoid her, but the lightning blade was long enough to bisect him either way. Again, however, the black shield got in the way. He threw out another one of the orbs after her, and she beat her wings as hard as possible get away from it, retreating to a safe range and eyeing him annoyedly. 3 orbs, they can move independently, they can change shape, and I should probably assume they just destroy anything that touches them. Alright, how do I bypass that? Surrender! He shouted at her. Nothing can bypass the truth-seeking orbs. Oh. Am I being underestimated? She crossed 2 of her arms, recall there were currently 4 there. I just did character development, sister thief. This isn't a fight anymore, this is my victory lap. He glared, and shot his beams out again. Getting predictable, are we? Do you only have the beams, the gravity and the balls? She prepped a substitution jutsu with her 2 real arms while shoving her fake ones out in front of herself and building up a pair of crystal release lion fists, and then charged straight into the energy as it hurtled towards her. To her great surprise, it worked. She wasn't absorbing anything, but the chakra nullifying properties of the beam wasn't getting through her glowing opal shield. Perfect. She flew straight forwards through the beam, canceling the substitution jutsu and making some different seals. He saw her coming, of course, and cut off the attack. He prepared a shield from one of the orbs as she charged straight for him, her clones flying out to either side, and here Jakoma. She thrust her palm out towards the black surface. Her vision cranked up into an even higher register, and she finally understood what was going on in those balls, and oh. It was everything. Yin, yang, all 5 elements and every combination thereof. She'd hoped to be able to disrupt it, but that wasn't even on the table, it was too pure, too condensed, she was barely able to stop the hand that touched it from disintegrating on contact. And then the other 2 orbs swept round in an arc and crashed through her body. There was a poof of substitution beforehand and that clone popped, and the real Hinata blasted up a storm of lightning techniques below that didn't even break through his adamantine energy cloak, taijutsu it is, then. He completely ignored her, paying far more attention to the other clone that was dropping towards him from above, carrying a boulder about 5 times as tall as she was. Nullify this! It shouted, shoving the mass downwards. So he did. One of the orbs transformed into what might have been a mace, and he swung it upwards and shattered the moonrock with contemptuous ease, going through to obliterate the clone immediately. That wasn't an issue though, Hinata had created more, and now there were 4 of her flying towards him from 4 different directions. The one more than the number of orbs plan didn't work. Tonari spread his arms wide and the 3 balls merged together, sweeping round him into a spherical shield that encompassed a 10-meter radius around him. Hinata's 3 clones crashed into it and instantly dispelled, but the real her was already making the substitution seals with her second pair of hands. As far as she was concerned, the substitution jutsu was massively underrated. Especially with her eyes that let her see things that were basically anywhere. Its main drawback was that it took 2 hands and a lot of focus to cast, and that any ninja worth their salt knew immediately what you were trying to do while you used it. She was beginning to get the feeling, however, that Tonari wasn't really a ninja worth his salt at all. She finished the technique and substituted with one of the shards of leftover boulder that had fallen when he destroyed it. Fallen within the shield. He barely had any time to look up at her in surprise before she swung down a lion fist and punched him right in his stupid face. Sasuke landed in a crouch, Kubikura Bocho held over his shoulders, and strained his ears as hard as he could. There was a thud from behind him as Kisami's body hit the floor, but nothing to suggest that his opponent had another boss fight stage. He exhaled loudly and stood up, then leapt as far away as he could as there was a horrible rending sound from the position of Kisami's corpse. Can someone explain to me what's happening?" he shouted. What in all the sweet swirling sands of Suna was all Kankuro said. Guy filled in, all the usual bravado in his voice missing. "It's eating him." The noise stopped, with one last rustle. Sasuke was, for once, very glad he couldn't see what had just happened. "Samahada's just lying there innocuously, isn't it?" he deadpanned. "Yup," Kankuro said, popping the pea. Then, after a long few seconds, "What? I'm not touching it." "Go pick it up." "What? Why do I have to pick it up?" "One of us has to, we can't exactly leave it here. Besides, I thought you said you wanted all 7 swords." "It just ate the last," Sasuke scowled. "Fucking fine." He walked to where he remembered it dropping. A quick stomp on the ground nearby told him where its main body was, and where the hilt stuck out. He reached out, gingerly, and touched the shaft. Touched the shaft, "Greetings, swordsman." Sasuke screeched with all the masculinity of a 6-year-old soprano and jumped back another 10 meters. "What the fuck, what happened?" Kankuro called out. "You didn't hear that?" "Hear what?" The Sasuke stopped and decided to get more information before convincing everyone nearby that the sensory deprivation had made him go crazy. He walked back over to touch the sword and carefully thought, "Hello? You return. And in only a few seconds, impressive. Many take days to return and speak to me again. Of course, I'll do eventually. Nobody can resist my power for long." The voice reverberated between Sasuke's ears like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was scratchy, almost whispered, and distinctly feminine, even if it was lower-pitched than his ordinary tone. Yes, hi." He continued. "I assume that this is Samahada speaking?" "Indeed. I am the ultimate weapon, the greatest of all ninja tools. The first of the 7 swords of the mist can talk." Laughter echoed in his head. "That pathetic order may have laid claim to me, but they are the latest in a long line. I am firstborn of the creation of all things, other weapons are forged and rusted in an eye blink compared to I. The creation of all Naruto said that was the sage's jutsu." "Indeed. First he used his power to create the tools he would need, then he used us as catalysts to channel that power further. I am the sword with which he carved up the 10 tails." "Oh. Well, okay." Sasuke shifted uneasily. "So what happens now?" "You slew my previous swordsman. Kisame was a fun partner, but you have proven yourself to be greater than even he. Thus, I am yours to wield against all your enemies." "Oh, dope. Hold on, let me be dramatic about it." Sasuke grasped the shaft, grasped the shaft, and yanked it up from the floor in a wide arc around himself, ending with it held in a guard position in front of him. It was heavy, but he was a goddamn ninja, carrying things weighing more than he did was basic work. Ladies and gentlemen, he declared, out loud. My collection is complete. Quaint. Can opener. Oh. Should I consume all of your chakra as I did to your victim? No, you're fine. How do you work? I drain and cut chakra and can store it for use later. Okay, awesome. Sasuke rested the blade on his shoulder and frowned. Wait, am I forgetting something? Sasuke! Shouted Naruto from across the valley. What the fuck did you do? Shit. Hinata watched in genuine surprise as Tonari's chakra cloak shattered like glass around him. The truth-seeking orbs fizzled out, which was good because he almost crashed into them as he began falling rapidly downwards with his capacity for flight suddenly gone, and oh, okay, I thought that would take more, but I guess we're done now. She charged down after him, grabbing him by the throat. The preceding event was just, well, really gross, but suffice to say that by the end of it Tonari didn't have any eyes anymore. Hinata stabilized herself in the air, holding Neji's second eye out in front of herself, and watched as the blue energy of the Tensiken faded from it. It was left as she remembered, a pure white orb, just like her own eyes. She briefly zapped it with some lightning chakra to get the blood off. Her next move was to toss Tonari dismissively to the side and let him fall, which was about when she became aware of all the pain she was in. Oh hi, sense of touch, been a while, how are you OWW? Similarly to Tonari, it seemed Hinata was really not meant to be doing this with only one extra eye. Bottoms up, I suppose. She brought up Neji's second eye and touched it to her Vishnu, this time the center of her forehead. Again, it vanished seamlessly into the surface like a marble dropping into water, and after a moment, the suffering eased. She felt stabilized. Like the strain from her powers was finally being handled by a power source capable of running it. It was a relief, to put it mildly. Which was about when she became aware of the screaming. She looked down to see Tonari still falling towards the moon's surface, and he looked absolutely terrified. Save me, Savim. He screeched up at her, like he hadn't just blown her stomach open half a minute earlier. She rolled her eyes in dove, with every intention of finishing him off, which was about when she became aware of her sister. Tonari! Shouted Hanabi, stumbling across the moon's surface. She was completely blind, falling over every bump and hole in the rock, but was still desperately running towards her captor's screaming voice. Stop! Big brother, what's wrong? Big brother. Hinata's eyes widened for a brief second, then she scowled. Oh, for fuck's sake, fine. Rather than punching a hole in his stomach, she grabbed the lapel of Tonari's robe, using her wings to slow their descent and glide down towards her sister. While she was at it, she pulled up a lion fist and started draining as much as she could from his, admittedly impressive, reserves of chakra. You saved me. He managed, panting in either fear or exhaustion. Would you really have died from falling at terminal velocity? In this low gravity? She snapped. Probably not. Then don't read too much into it. She dropped him from about a foot above the surface and then let herself touch down, dropping the Vishnu and exhaling. Her hairs pricked up at the chill. Hanabi. She said, grabbing her sister by the shoulders. Are you okay? I'm fine. The girl pouted adorably. Why were you two fighting? Great question. Hinata turned on Tonari. Seriously, what on earth is going on here? Who are you? Why do you live on the moon? Why did Neji bring Hanabi here? What were those eyes? Why are you both blind? There was a cough from beside them, which was about when Hinata became aware of the old man stood right next to them. And as far as her Byakugan could see, he didn't even exist. I think I might be able to explain some of that, he said, smiling kindly. He had white hair, skin just as pale as Tonari's, and two eyes that were just as aquamarine blue as the Tensiken had been. Who in the Tonari looked just as confused as Hinata felt. My name is Himura Otsutsuki, he explained, with a smile. I'm here to stop my grandkids fighting. Aftermath 8, just screwing around. Himura Otsutsuki. Hinata deadpanned. The brother of the motherfucking. She stopped when she realized the two others beside her had immediately dropped to their knees. Hanabi. She hissed. What are you doing? He's, like, a super big deal. Hanabi stage whispered back. Tonari said, from now on if you start another sentence with Tonari said, I'm going to just hit Tonari. Hinata interrupted. Please, do not hit Tonari, said Tonari. None of you need to be bowing to me. Hamura cut in, chuckling. DNA of a dimension-hopping alien space which aside, I'm not a god. Just a man, same as any of you. But Tonari said you helped make the moon. Hanabi shouted excitedly, standing up. Hinata punched Tonari, who went ow. Okay, so I am pretty badass. Hamura smiled, but regardless, no bowing. Over-deifying me is how this whole mess started, as I understand it. Right, the start, what a great place to start. Hinata stared at him. Exposition me, please. It's been 2 weeks since I knew what was going on. Of course. Hamura sat down on the moon's surface and pat the rock with his hand. One after another, they all sat facing him. So, several thousand years ago, my brother and I had just finished sealing the 10 tails into the moon. He would go on to absorb it into himself and split it into the 9 bijou, but before that, there was something much more important we had to get to. Which was? Tonari tilted his head. Getting laid. The pale young man broke into a coughing fit, while Hinata reprimanded, Hey, child in the audience. Oh come on, I'm 13. Hanabi stated, sticking her tongue out. I know what sex is. How? Tonari demanded. I never, you let me into the library. There's all sorts of books in there. Even these ones with orange covers, where how the hell did Aika end up on the moon? Hinata shouted. Neji and Itachi put them there while Tonari wasn't looking. Hamura told them. But we're not there yet, be patient. So, big save the world party, lots of alcohol, everything was crazy for a while, and long story short me and my bro both got hitched. His children were Indra and Ashura, who went on to cause literally all the problems for everyone ever forever. The old man scowled for a moment, then sighed. Loved those two. Anyway, I also had 2 children. One lived her life out in the human world, had her own family and her own descendants, spreading across the globe. One remained here on the moon, with me, as did his family. And so was my bloodline split, never again to meet. Well damn. Hinata muttered. Orochimaru's crazy theories were almost dead on, so what happened? Time passed. Hamura said. And these idiots, he pointed at Tonari, decided they were going to massively overanalyze everything I ever said. Hamura left us a celestial decree. Tonari defended, which merited a laugh. Celestial decree? What kinda when did I ever leave you one of those? You said, Tonari coughed, well, all the interpretations are different. It has been several thousand years. Aha! Hamura raised an eyebrow. The pale boy cleared his throat. The most accepted translation is when Nisrul takes its place in the 5 nations of the world, when the beasts rampage across the kingdoms of man, when the inheritors' duel carves wounds into the land, when the greatest of conflicts strike thrice, and the combatants have not learned, when the husk of the 10 tails is missing from its imprisonment, the Tensekin wakes, and the wheel turns upon the accursed humanity. Hinata couldn't help the shiver that ran across her skin, cross-referencing the predictions against the events she remembered. But, Tonari coughed. We're actually pretty sure that most of that was made up, or changed due to linguistic drift and semantic context. When I looked, the oldest actual record of it translates to something like when in doubt, slay a human. Oh, for my sake, Hamura growled. I said when in doubt, lay a human. I was drunk. Drunk and horny. But Tonari looked horrified. But I found it underneath the ghetto statue when it vanished a few years ago. That was graffiti. My son wrote it there as a prank. The S in the sleigh was pretty faint, Tonari muttered to himself, very quietly. Hanabi started giggling. Anyway. Hamura sighed. The plan was that they would live on the moon, guard the Tensiken and the Ghetto statue, and help out if the world needed them to. Not crash an orbiting body into the planet. You were going to what? Hanabi looked up at Tonari, aghast. I thought God was telling me to. Cut me some slack. So, what went wrong? Hinata asked. Why was there never any moon throwing? Neji. Tonari growled, spitting the word out with almost as much hatred as Hinata had in her earlier years. Look. Lord Hamura's Tensiken, the Tensiken, rests in the center of the moon. It grants us light and power, and has done so for thousands of years. But, it cannot do so without fuel. He pointed to his own empty eye sockets. It is tradition to sacrifice the eyes of every child born to preserve the eye's luster. Wow. Hinata shuddered. I'd call you all crazy, except my family put the caged bird seal on over half of the clan's members, so I can't really talk. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Tonari grimaced. At one point there was a bit of a scuffle about that, and, well, whoever had the giant laser eye sort of won. I don't suppose you talked it out like reasonable adults? No, we wiped out over 90% of our population. Oh, great. Indeed. Now I am the last of the Otsutsuki. At least of those that maintained our family name here in this celestial system. Tonari looked down, expression grim. There was little hope. However, there was another prophecy. And this one I know is true. You may have noticed that when bloodlines are combined, the results can be potent. When Danzo combined Senju and Uchiha DNA, he could spam an instant mind control jutsu. Hinata told him. So, yeah. Well, it was said that by combining our bloodline with that of Hamura's earthly descendants, we would recreate the power of the Great Lord himself, granting us our own Tensiken. The Great Lord is right here, and for once Tonari is right. Hamura said. Such is a delicate dance, however. The purer the bloodline, the easier it is for such effects to appear. On the other hand, incest as well, first thing, gross, and second thing, tends to produce defects that stop the special powers from showing up. It's like eye color in ordinary humans, for example. Genes come in pairs, plenty of people will carry one gene for brown eyes, and since brown is a dominant color, that's all it takes. That's why the Sharingan and Byakugan are very common in children, if their parents had it. But some bloodlines like the wood release are much rarer because you need to be lucky enough to get both genes in the pair to be wood positive, which is why your first Hokage was the first and last in a long time with the power. There's a lot more sci in my sci-fi than I'm entirely comfortable with right now. Hinata warned. Then I'll fi it up some more. Hamura extrapolated, chakra and DNA are deeply intertwined. My brother always believed it was a force for connecting people, after all. And TLDR, if Tonari sticks a Hyuga's eyes in his face, he gets the Tensiken. Tonari took over. And with your clan's peculiar practices, you can call them barbaric, it's all right, I agree. Excellent. Your hideous, disgusting, borderline racist, barbaric practices left me with the unenviable task of kidnapping one of 5 or so people from the hardest ninja clan in the world to sneak up on. And then, things got even harder. The massacre, Hinata muttered. Ha! Hanabi, who had been following the conversation mutely so far, looked up in confusion. The what? Hinata looked sharply at Tonari and thought you didn't tell her? What was I supposed to tell her? He sent back, that her cousin murdered her whole family? How well did you take that at age 13? I left the village to join a terrorist, fair point. But we're telling her soon. Whatever, keep talking. Nothing, Hanabi. Tonari continued, aloud. This was the point at which you arrived, alongside Neji and Itachi. They subdued me and my puppets with relative ease, interrogated me for everything I knew. The following events were strange. Hinata thought about it. You could have just used Hanabi's eyes to crash the moon. But if you had, you wouldn't have needed to wait for Neji to die, but her eyes are gone, so what gives? Quite. Tonari scowled. Use your eyes on us. Notice anything? Hinata frowned, activated her Byakugan, and looked. It took her a second to catch it, but Genjutsu? She noticed, glancing between him and Hanabi. Then, after another moment, Koto Amatsukami? That's the bitch. Tonari grumbled. It was hard to notice, but it was there, thin strands of chakra floating around his mind. Floating about him, Hanabi even across to her. They used a Mangekyo Sharingan they were just carrying around, apparently. Originally from someone named Shursui, I believe? Itachi placed an enchantment on both of us. On both of you? Hinata frowned. I thought it would only affect one person. So did I, but then they said, let me guess. Hinata interrupted. Fuck you, we're Itachi Uchiha and Neji Hyuuga, we can do whatever we want. Exactly that, yes. Tonari nodded. Here's the gist of it, they removed Hanabi's eyes. And they hid them somewhere. Hinata looked across at Hanabi, but there was no surprise on her face, clearly this was something her sister knew. The only one that knows the eye's location, now that those two are dead, is Hanabi. Tonari continued. Only, she does not know that she knows it. It is locked away in her mind until one of many conditions are met that would cause her to remember. Not that they would tell me what those conditions were, their hope was that I would be forced to spare her life and put off any doomsday plans, while also giving her a safe place to stay. And in doing so, keeping the power of the Tensiken available in case they needed it. He grimaced. They also hoped I would get attached to her. It worked. Tonari's been really nice to me. Hanabi declared. You're not allowed to attack him anymore, you understand? Fine. Hinata allowed. She gave Tonari a glare, realized he couldn't see it, and sent him a genjutsu of her giving him a glare. But he'd better not get any ideas. I'm twice her age. He deadpanned back. There will be no ideas. Well, all right then. Hinata turned to Hamura. And finally, why are you here? I'm not. He replied, simply. I died many thousands of years ago. But me and my brother did not only pass on our chakra to our descendants, we gifted it to the whole of humanity. Which we did with some finesse. He spread his arms, and then waved one through Hanabi's head to demonstrate his intangibility. This is a heias, of sorts. When you drained Tonari's chakra just recently, it combined with yours, and temporarily recreated a facsimile of mine. Thus, something approximating my consciousness was able to appear to speak to you. There was a pause, while everyone realized they didn't have any more questions left. So what now? Hanabi asked. Now Hinata frowned. I was expecting to murder some overconfident fool and reclaim Nijisai, not well, reunite with my sister. She smiled across at Hanabi. Not that I regret it, this is quite possibly the best day of my life so far. But I don't think I'll be able to spend much time getting to know you. Actually, she gulped, I don't think I'll be able to bring you back with me, Hanabi. Not even to visit. What? Hanabi looked downcast. Why? Because we're at the end of the 2-week time skip. Hinata told them. There's a war about to start. Someone's going after my friends. I have no idea how strong they are, but worst case, they can fight the entire shinobi world. And you're safe here. Safer than you'd be in Konoha, or anywhere on Earth, given the Byakugan he has, but you can't just. Hanabi shook. Then she stood up, and ran across to wrap her older sister in a hug. I missed you. She cried, and oh, was she crying? Tears were wetting the blindfold. It was so long. And I was so lonely, Hinata, and I was worried, and I missed you too. Hinata gripped her sister as tight as she could without hurting her. I missed you so much. But I need you to stay safe for a few days, okay? I know. Hanabi sagged. You've got to tell me all about what you've been up to, understand? Like, who are your friends, and is old man Sarutobi still Hokage, and is his cousin Neji really dead? We lost Hiruzen, and Neji's dead too, yes. Hinata stood up. And my friends, they're amazing. I promise I'll come up and introduce you to them the moment we're finished, you hear? You promise? Hanabi demanded. I promise. Hinata replied. Well, okay. Hanabi stepped back. But you've got to bring me loads of cool presents. And teach me ninjutsu. I will, I swear. Cross my heart. Hinata separated herself and breathed out. Okay, Tonari, if she gets so much as a skin knee, you die. Ghost of Ninjas Past, thanks for the exposition. Hanabi? See you soon. She looked up at Earth. At her home. So, do I go back through the tunnel, or the Vishnu flowed painlessly over her body, and the angelic wings sprouted from her back? Can I just fly straight there? Not to burst your bubble, Hamura said, gently, but I can't even begin to list all the reasons that wouldn't work. Conan walked, slowly, out onto the lake. She was absolutely exhausted, had barely got 24 hours of sleep total since the attack 2 weeks ago, and was acutely aware of the fact that the only reason she'd noticed the intruder was because he'd allowed her to. That hubris was her only real chance to not die in the next 5 minutes. It's over. She called across the water's surface. Nagato is dead, and with him the Rinnegan. The Gedo statue and the first 7 bijou are gone, along with our dreams. I'm sorry, but the Akatsuki is finished. Across from her, Toby tooted. Conan, you and I both know that that's not how the Rinnegan work. She noticed that he was not wearing his Akatsuki cloak. That was worrying. It meant he wasn't pretending they mattered to him anymore. The Rinnegan don't just vanish when their owners die, he continued, otherwise they'd never have been put in Dearest Nagi-kun in the first place. You're right. She replied. All right, Deception 1 is down, now I'm a traitor. They were intact. Right up until I took a kunai to them. As if you would be willing to defile your dearest husband's corpse. Toby chuckled. Oh, I think you underestimate the lengths I will go to. Conan told him. Nagato puppet Yahiko's body for years. I think I can follow that example. Humph. Yes, I imagine you can. Toby leaned backwards and shoved his hands into his pockets. Yeah, I imagine you did try. And try. And escalate, and try again. He giggled like a schoolgirl. How long did it take you to figure out that you were attempting the impossible? Conan's fists tightened by her sides. Deception 2 down, now I'm an incompetent traitor. But she had tried. Tried everything in her arsenal, and handed the eyes over to everyone she trusted and gotten them to try as well. Nothing had worked. The Rinnegan might not be invincible, but they were bloody close to it. You will never find them. She warned him, holding out a hand. Paper began to flake off her. None know their location but me, and I will never tell you. Why are you fighting this? He asked her, condescendingly. This was the plan, Conan. You've done an absolute 180 here. I'm doing what Nagato wanted. She answered, calmly. Wow, you're literally only doing anything because it's what your man tells you to? Ninja Tumblr would tear you apart, girl, leave. Now. Or I will kill you. He sighed. You really should tell me. If not, I'll kill your whole village. And if I give the eyes to you, you'll kill the world. I will not be blackmailed. But you might be broken. He reasoned. Do you have any idea how much pain I can expose you to? Nothing you do could possibly hurt more than losing him. She looked at him with hard eyes. He tilted his head. Tilted it back. You know what? I believe you. He moved. She flicked a wrist and explosions tore up the area between him and her, and then she was already backing up and flinging a set of paper shuriken at him, and he was just running through the explosions, and the shuriken, and he held a hand out towards her face and she flicked her will and the outer layer of paper armor around her exploded. Toby was forced to choose between A, grabbing her and obliteration, or B, dipping, and so he dipped. He flew right through her as the explosion rained around them, and the inner layer of paper protected her from the burning heat even as she jumped upwards. The paper formed around her shoulder blades, and she batted her new wings once, twice, stabilizing at twice what she thought was his maximum jump distance. When the explosion ended, he was stood on the surface, unharmed. His one red Sharingan stared up at her. I'm genuinely curious, how long do you expect to survive now? Unless the answer is 5 straight minutes, in which case I guess you're safe, but otherwise you're pretty fucked here. I think I'll take my chances, she said, coldly. All right, fine, whatever. Again, you literally cannot kill me. Like, is there anywhere you'd prefer me to stand? Any attack you want me to use first? Actually, she waved an arm, could you move, maybe, 2 meters to the left? Sure. He walked a few steps. Like this? Perfect. She snapped her fingers, and the lake was gone. Well, not gone, only vaporized instantly by a set of bombs designed specifically to produce as much heat as possible. Not even Toby could water walk on hot steam, and he had to phase into Kamui anyway to avoid burning to death. So, naturally, he started falling into the sea of paper bombs beneath him. 5 minutes? She shouted, adrenaline pumping, I can't believe this worked, try double that. From 10 fucking billion paper bombs. He dropped into the abyss, and the explosions roared. She remained floating in the air for the full period, arms tense, eyes carefully scanning the area, mind spinning as she tried to think of all the ways he could escape. When that time elapsed, actually about 12 minutes, just in case, and the explosions ceased, she kept looking, as the ringing in her ears ceased and the rumbling stopped. Still nothing. She flew slowly downwards into the pit she'd created, ready for anything. She had hardly expected to find a corpse, the bombs would have shredded any remains, and the rain was already falling again, beginning to refill the lake. Yet, at the bottom, she saw it. Submerged in water, cracked, covered in mud, lay a single, red, Mangekyo. She left it there to be buried, as the sledge fell in. She got her bearings and flew, taking a circuitous route. Half a league east, 2 leagues north, an hour flying aimlessly in circles checking for pursuit and then finally doubling back on herself and traveling on foot for a few hundred meters. She pulled one boulder among many to the side, and walked through the illusory wall behind it. The torches lit themselves at a flick of her will, and she walked over to the grave in the center of the room. Nagato stared up at the ceiling, unblinking. It's over, she told him, clenching shut her eyes to hold back tears. He's dead, and you can rest, now. And then, from the corner of the room, amazing. Everything you just said was wrong. Conan's heart plummeted. Of course. When did you catch me? She asked, numbly. When you first flew up with the wings. Toby replied. You're lucky I can't cast Jinjutsu while I'm Kamui'd or IDV got you sooner. That carpet bomb was pretty crazy, but you do realize that I could have just walked out of the blast zone while I was intangible, right? I had to try, she said, voice hoarse. Looking up, she saw him leaning casually against the wall. One hand was juggling the Rinnegan, tossing them up into the air and catching them. On a check back, Nagato's eyes were gone from his head. Oh, I know. Toby sighed. You remind me of a girl I knew, once. Absolute maniac, she was. Dead now, of course, I got to watch my best friend kill her. Hey, speaking of dead, the Rinnegan vanished, possibly into that pocket dimension of his, and he stood up properly. Please don't, she asked. Begged, really, and Cammy wasn't that pathetic. You have what you came for. You prepared 10 billion paper bombs specifically to kill me. I think we're beyond duty and into the realms of spite. Like, seriously, how long did that take? You don't need to do this. Not really, no, I just kind of feel like it, I'm carrying his child. She screamed. That made Toby pause, for a moment. Then, well, you know what they say. There's only one thing worse than a murderer, a child. No. Wait, what the fuck? Conan had not been the one to speak. Toby looked up at the stranger in the doorway and groaned. Oh, you're shitting me. Nope, said the stranger, stood outlined by the light coming into the cave. Can I get, 20 seconds alone with her here? Nope. Oh, for Toby sighed. If I wasn't supposed to be starting a war in the next hour, and if I didn't know I'll need that time to adjust to the dojutsu, I'd kill you both right now. Conan, you are very lucky that you're so paranoid with where you hid this thing. For a moment, Conan felt a horrifying burst of hope. Then one of realization. You're not even afraid of us, are you? You won't get killing us out of the way now, even though it would stop us warning our allies. Even though it means you'll have to fight us in a bigger group later. Because it might make you 5 minutes late to the start of the war. Yup. She had a feeling Abito was smiling under the mask. And the only thing I plan on doing at that time is pontificating a bit to Kabuto. What you're witnessing, Conan, is called flexing. Ciao. With a swirl of distorted spacetime, he vanished. Conan sighed in relief against Nagato's coffin, and the moment she was done with the relief she let out a low growl of frustration. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Easy, said the newcomer, walking over to lay a hand on her shoulder. You did everything you could. Did I? Well, you didn't make any stupid mistakes, I noticed, and we're still alive. Take the win. He's toying with us. She spat. Did you hear him? World War IV's starting, and look at him. He's having the time of his life. Then we'll make him pay for it. The newcomer let her sit for a moment, then gave her arm a tug. Come on. We've got work to do. Conan gave one last glance to Nagato's body and nodded. Right. I need to regroup with the Shinobi Alliance, tell them what I know. He can't have let the name Kabuto slip by accident, but we can still use it. You do that. And I'll come with you. The newcomer cracked his neck both ways. I need to regroup with my team. Haku heard his tent flap open and sighed. What is it? What, can't I come say hello? He turned round and grinned, seeing Tsunade in the doorway. Well, you certainly could have come sooner. How's it going, Hokage-sama? Drop the honorifics, Mizuki-sama. We're the same rank now, remember? The medic Nin walked in, held her arms out, and Haku ran in for a hug. And I'm doing pretty good. She continued. Though I'm disappointed that waking up to find myself at war has only led to more paperwork. Haku rolled his eyes. Ugh. Tell me about it. And I had to add a semi-hostile takeover to that bureaucracy pile. Aha. You know, when I implied you could try for Mizukage, this wasn't quite the manner I expected you to do it in. Tsunade looked down her nose at him, and he shrugged. What? I had to improvise, there was a problem. Let me guess. Were you related to the problem? Oh, ha, ha. But no, it's gone over pretty smoothly. Only 1 or 2 assassination attempts each day. I kept Mayon as an advisor, which I imagine helped. As much as I want her in a dank cell for the rest of her life, I really doubt we can manage without her. He tilted his head to look towards the doorway. We ready? We are. Tsunade blew out a breath. Wanna come see? He did, so he did. Outside the Kage's personal tents, the rest of the camp was a flurry of activity. Ninja were everywhere, practically tripping over each other, moving around like ants if ants had super speed, made a shitton of noise, and also really wanted to kill each other. Haku followed Tsunade, joining her, Gaara, and Inoki, plus their aides, on a raised platform where they could look out on it all. As they watched, the ninja were being all herded into various groups. How many are there? He asked, nobody in particular. About 80,000 frontline combatants. Sai said, walking up to him from Tsunade. With about 10,000 more in communications, oversight, and organization. Hi, by the way. Hey, gorgeous. Haku replied, smiling. And wow. That's a ridiculous number. How have they not all killed each other already? Something about the part where we're fighting a guy with 7 bijou who honestly believed he could take all 5 Kage at once. Sai shrugged. It has them all terrified enough to suddenly be super into jolly cooperation. Toby versus the 5 Kage? Seems far-fetched. Think he'd win? Maybe. Probably a YouTube video about it, if we look. Sai paused and looked down. In the few brief interactions Haku had had with him over the last 2 weeks, his behavior had been off. Understandable, really, he'd just come off a frankly terrifying level of mind control. But his previously unflappable calm had been replaced with a distinct look of insecurity. Hey! Haku told him, putting a hand on his shoulder. If there's something on your mind, you can say it. It's me, I'm a Kage now, I can take it. It's nothing. Or, well, it's Sai side, had he ever done that before, and then, quietly, do you want to go and grab coffee sometime? That's it? Haku couldn't help the laugh. That's what you were afraid to ask me? Sai, we've literally fucked. I know, it's just he pointed to his own head. For the first time, I'm certain I'm alone in here. I know that if I make a decision, I'm the one who's making it. So, as I speak now, declaring myself to be sound of mind and body, would you like to go on a date, at some point? Haku smiled wider than he ever had, and had to work very hard to not cry. Yes. Absolutely. But it's going to have to be after the whole war thing. Still, shouldn't take long. We've got the biggest fighting force in ninja history. Ahem. Across from them, Gar stepped up to a microphone and tapped it a few times, getting everyone's attention. Esteemed ninja of the Great Shinobi Alliance, kick his ass. The applause was deafening, as were the chants like Konoha and Hidden Mist. And for the rakeage. Gar stepped back and bowed low. I enthusiastically pat him on the shoulder, while Inoki nodded in approval. I retract my previous statement. Haku said, calmly. We're all going to die. B stared. Guide stared. Kankuro, sorta, stared. Naruto stared. Sasuke shifted awkwardly to the left so as to block the exit to the canyon. There was a pause. Funny weather today. Naruto remarked. Lotta water. Freak rainstorm. Sasuke replied, casually. I was under for 5 minutes, and it was up to my torso. B added. Very freaky rain. Sasuke nodded. Naruto stared. Okay, fine. Sasuke explained. I was practicing with some water jutsu, and it got out of control. You don't have water release. Naruto pointed out. I learned it. Oh yeah? Do a water technique right now. Sasuke didn't move. Naruto stared. Where's Yamato, Sasuke? Went home. Sasuke replied. He got ill. I'm feeling pretty ill too. Can I go home? No. Okay. Well, I'm done with the Kyuubi training. Prove it. There was a flash, and Naruto was bathing the entire area in a glowing yellow aura. The golden light suffused his entire body, and his eyes were red. Now B was staring at him. Ha! Sasuke replied. Dope. So can I leave? No. Naruto stared. You see that boulder? Sasuke pointed to a rock, some distance away. I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder. We should, look at it. What's going on, Sasuke? Naruto replied, deadpan. The Uchiha broke and sighed. An asshole declared war on us. Wants you and B. We're trying to keep you here to keep you out of the fighting. Goddamn Sasuke. Kankuro sighed. One secret. Hey, they literally kidnapped Yamato, bandage face, they already know we're here. Sasuke shot back. So, what now? Naruto continued. When's the war start? About Sasuke checked his watch. 15 minutes. Awesome, we can be right on time. You're not, you lied to me. Naruto took a step forwards, hurt plain on his face. You and Hinata and everyone else, you lied to me for my own good. Remember how well it went down when people did that about the Kyuubi? I know. Sasuke replied, voice breaking a little. I'm sorry. For all we know, the world ends the moment he gets you, and I was blind, and he just knocked out it with a look, I didn't know what to do. But I should have told you the truth. I should have trusted you. Naruto looked down. Then looked back up with an easy smile. Nah, it's fine. You knew exactly what I was gonna do, and you were right. But I mean, they know where I am now, so we're gonna have to go fight them sooner or later. Sasuke muttered. Then he tilted his head up. All right then. But you'll have to pass a test, first. Really, dude? Right now? Do you want an epic moment or not? Go on. Sasuke reached up behind his head and began to untie his medical bandage. I'm not letting you fight against anyone I wouldn't. Meaning, if I'm going to let you out, he yanked the bandage off, letting it flutter away in the breeze. His eternal Mangekyo Sharingan flashed red-black. Then you'll have to prove yourself against me. Naruto grinned, and his chakra cloak intensified. Ah, little baby's eyes have finally grown up. You're on. Everyone else wisely moved out of the way. And then Naruto was gone. He slammed into Sasuke, and the Rasengan he'd built up his palm slammed into the purple surface of Samahata, and then blackfire wrapped around it, and Naruto disengaged and Kankuro leaned in towards B, between flashes, and asked, Can you do this? Killer Bee looked at the two teenagers crashing into each other faster than the rakeage could move, tearing through duplicates and forming glowing orange claws and setting everything ablaze with black fire and surviving said black fire and purple armored giants swinging purple Magatama, and found that he really wasn't sure. Especially since the two just seemed to be messing with each other. The brief combat ended when a casually thrown Senjutsu Rasen Shuriken crashed into a casually thrown Amaterasu Rasen Kunai, and the resulting explosion tore a giant hole in the cliffside, forcing the people on the inside to jump away from falling debris as boulders slammed into the ground and crashed into the sea. Naruto and Sasuke landed on the, miraculously still intact, jetty, once again facing each other in fighting stances. Both glanced to the boat on Naruto's left. Then Sasuke readied another Rasen Kunai, and there was a flash, and a line of crystal appeared in front of each of them, blocking them off from each other. A white figure blasted down headfirst from the sky, turning around and flaring its wings at the last possible moment. Hinata Hyuuga landed in between the two, delicately as you please. Hello, boys. She smiled. What did I miss? Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances. Our brand new high-risk superpowers aren't high-risk anymore. Sasuke filled in. Oh, great, mine too. She told them. Also, I went to the moon and fought a descendant of the brother of Ninja Jesus. Also, my sister is alive and I finished my character arc. There was a pause. She clapped her hands together and smiled. So, shall we go fight a war? Act 8, The Fourth Great Ninja War. Closure made easier with zombies. Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino darted forwards through the trees, accompanied by hundreds of others spread out across miles and miles of terrain. Together, they formed a walking, or rather, tree-running, wall of ninja moving across the country. Shikamaru was fully aware that this was the most ridiculous war in the history of the five elemental nations. They were fighting one person. Terrain claimed had no meaning, neither did number of soldiers, neither did anything. This Madara, and Shikamaru had bet 50 Ryo that wasn't who it was. Odds on it were 5-1, apparently, had exactly 2 goals, and if his intentions with them were anything like Naruto said Pain's had been, then his success meant instant game over. But if they put Naruto and Bee in a fortress, set everyone to guard them well, whenever two ninja are in an asymmetrical battlefield, the favor would always go to the attacker. That's just the way they were trained. Infiltration and tactical demolition was their whole thing. The current plan was simple: raid everywhere Madara might be hiding, and once they find him, throw ninja at him until he drops dead from exhaustion. Crude, but effective. Even with the Kyuubi against Hashirama, Madara had reportedly only been able to fight for a day or so before exhausting himself to death. Unless he's gotten stronger, rather than weaker, in the centuries since then, said the rational voice in Shikamaru's head. He tried to ignore it. The strategy necessitated the scouts, which Ino Shikacho were a part of. They were the ones supposed to actually find this guy, composed of those who were best equipped to capture threats, best equipped to transmit information quickly, or best equipped to die without much cost. Shikamaru was confident his team was in the first category, but it didn't make him feel much better. He glanced left to give a suggestion to Ino and saw a contact. He shouted, throwing a kunai and immediately sending his chakra through the shadow. Ino and Choji both jumped away as the thing appeared out of the tree bark, reaching out for them, only to be caught by Shikamaru's extended shadow and held in place. What in the six paths of it had white skin, yellow eyes, green hair, and a grin pasted across its face, and the arm that it already held pointed out, extended as Shikamaru watched. His eyes widened as a spear of organic something jetted out towards him. Would release. He was saved at the last minute by his teammates, an oversized palm by Choji batting the organic weapon away while Ino dropped down behind the paralyzed thing and slit its throat with a kunai. It fell. Not bleeding, but dying just like any other human. Thanks. Shikamaru grunted. Ino, what it was, it had a soul. She shivered, looking at its corpse. Its mind was empty, simple, but it was awake. It felt like they were interrupted by shouts from their left and right, calls echoing from across the line of scouts throughout the forest. Shik gulped. Choji. He told his teammate. Boost me. The Akimichi didn't need to be asked twice, reaching out with a palm the size of a horse. Shikamaru jumped onto it, nodded, and then Choji shoved, sending Shikamaru up above the canopy and letting him see all the way to the horizon. His heart froze in his chest. The tree-line stopped a few kilometers ahead of their position. That much had been expected. What wasn't expected was the sea of white-bodied monsters all charging straight towards them. Oh, this is such a no, not saying it, this is serious. Ino! He shouted him, the moment he dropped down again, getting a shocked look. Recontact base. Now. Looks like this is going to be a proper war after all. Naruto, Hinata, Sasuke and Bee all stopped on a large rock outcropping. All the other ninja who'd been on the island with them had returned to report to the main shinobi army, leaving the four of them alone to, well, in Naruto and Hinata's case, gawk. What the he began, fuck she finished for him. Ah. Sasuke held up a hand. Some of us don't have hyper-enhanced Kyuubi senses or dojutsu built for reconnaissance. Little explanation? War. Naruto said, numbly. I can feel them. The ninja are every combination of terrified, angry, hurt, but they're fighting. I don't know what they're fighting. I don't even know if they're people, but they're suffering. Zetsu. Hinata breathes. At everyone's confused glances, at least, I think that's what they are. Orochimaru explained all the Akatsuki members to me, and I've seen this one once or twice, watching me. Or, well, not these specifically, more look, he's like them, but black. Careful with what you're saying there. Sasuke glanced across at Bee. No, I mean he's not human. Whoa, okay. Be really careful. Stressed Bee. No, he's a Hinata stopped. Glared back at them. Don't do this to me right now. Look, Zetsu's a monster man who's 50% black chakra manifestation thing, and 50% well, I'm not sure. But it's white and freaky and the same thing in Tobi and Danzo's arms, and it's exactly what the massive army of monsters attacking the shinobi forces is. She turned back, squinting. But that's not all. There's oh no. Edo Tensei. They have reanimated undead on their side. Who created all these? Maybe, oh, I dunno, Madara? Sasuke offered. Point. Hinata breathed out. Okay, where to go, damn it? Where's Kakashi when we need him? Help the armies? Duh. Naruto offered. We can't just wait in there and exhaust ourselves killing fodder enemies. Sasuke shook his head. All the manga dictate a clear pattern here. Nameless characters fight these Zetsu, side characters fight the reanimated ninja, and we take on the main villain. Can you see him yet, Hinata? Not from here. We'll have to move in, get closer, but guys, EGB is so busted. By the time we're at the war front, I'll be able to see the whole country. There won't be anywhere for him to hide. Hold on, backtrack. Naruto held out a hand, concern on his face. We're just, what, leaving our allies to die? That's not cool. No, we're doing what we have to do to save them all the fastest. Sasuke countered. Phantom Menace rules, kill the big bad and all the minions go down. We need to go where we're most needed. Hinata agreed. And that means going right to the top. I'm sorry, Naruto, but we can't be in multiple places at once. Naruto blinked. Wow. Right, multiple places at once, way to make me feel stupid. Why didn't I do this immediately? He put his hands together in a familiar gesture. Naruto? Sasuke put a hand on his shoulder. Listen, even if you make a few hundred shadow clones and throw them out at the army, and trust me, I know you can, they'll be left weakened, and so will you. If we're going against someone who makes the Kage look like jokes, we can't do it at 1/100th strength. Naruto looked at them. Snorted. Shook his head. Oh, wow. You guys really don't get it, do you? They exchanged glances. Shadow clone jutsu. He created one duplicate, continuing, I mean, you all know I have a lot of chakra. I've shown I have a lot of chakra. Kakashi's told you I have a lot of chakra. But I don't think you quite realize how much chakra. He nodded to his clone, who took up its own hand seals. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. It shouted. And there was light. B, with no special dojutsu, only looked like he was about to shit himself, but Sasuke and Hinata each actually screamed as their surroundings were filled with Naruto. Thousands of them. Literally, upwards of 2,000 Naruto. All wearing Kyuubi cloaks, glowing golden, shining brighter than the sun that had only just started to rise above the horizon. For Konoha! Naruto shouted, and for Konoha! The cry was echoed 1,000 times from all around him, and then they were off, charging in a 120-degree arcade in front of everyone to reach all corners of the fighting. Naruto Prime turned back to his teammates, and grinned. They all could summon Gamabunta, if they want to use all their chakra at once. But they're weaker, right? B gulped. Nope. Naruto shrugged. Shadow clones are only physically weaker if they don't have the chakra to spare on propelling themselves around, and that caps it around, well, nothing, for me. And the cloaks are coming straight from the Kyuubi, so I don't even need to worry about that until we merge our chakra completely. You did that with half your chakra. Sasuke gulped. And I've still got more than all of you combined times 5. Ish. Naruto smiled. Huh, you have no idea how hot that was. Hinata said, very quietly, but not so quietly that he didn't hear. So, Madara. Naruto clapped his hands together, blushing. Let's go catch this asshole. Satobi appeared next to Kabuto. How's the war going? It's only just started, give it a minute. Yakushi Kabuto was trying his hardest to stay cool, but couldn't stop the grin that passed over his face. This was the most exciting thing he'd ever done. He was fighting everyone. Like, literally everyone. He was getting giddy just thinking about it. So set the scene for me. Toby dropped into a sitting position next to him. What's the war front like? How are we doing? Well, since you insist. Kabuto gestured to the map laid out in front of him. This is the battlefield. The rough shapes are the mass forces, the alliance's divisions and our hordes, and the shogi pieces represent our edonin. Since those can't die and don't get exhausted, I imagine they're going to be quite a hassle for our enemies to deal with. How effectively they can do so mainly depends on how quickly they adapt, how long it takes them to realize what sealing jutsu they need. Since only a few ninja in Konoha have even seen the Edo Tensei, I imagine that will take them a while. Not that we actually give a shit about what happens between the main armies. Toby pointed out. Oh, of course, but I'm getting to that. See, I resurrected a Yamanaka or two and used them to plug into the Alliance's communications network. Boo, sneaky. I love it. Toby rocked back and forth on his haunches like a child enraptured by their parents' stories. Thank you. See, obviously all we need to do is get our hands on the Jinchuriki. Lucky for us, by the reports I'm getting, B and the whole of Team 7 is making a beeline straight towards us. All the eggs are in one basket, ripe for the poaching. Kabuto reached into his pocket and drew out a few small figurines. So all we need to worry about is where we're putting all of our big players. You still sure you want to throw Madara at the 5-Kage? Toby nodded. Not like he can't handle it. And it'll give him a nice warm-up. Now as for our other allies, who are you planning on dropping on those 4 first? Kabuto chuckled. How about we send her very deliberately placed down 3 of the figurines on the map? Everyone? Toby looked across at him. The Rinnegan now prominently displayed in one eye seemed to flash in the darkness. You know what? I like the way you think. Hinata's eyes narrowed. Contact. She called back. I think? There's a body in a coffin under the floor, but it's not nope, it's moving. Positions people. The 4 landed in Power Ranger poses on the ground, quickly taking stock of the forest around them and the coffin emerging from the floor. The front of it popped off, and everyone flinched. The fuck? Said Nagato Uzumaki. Ah, shit. Sasuke glanced across at Naruto. Game plan? Naruto's mouth drew into a line as Nagato walked out of the coffin, and he started to think. He didn't want to get his friends hurt. That was concern number 1. Concern number 2 was that they were much more likely to get out of this working as a team, especially if Nagato could still do the 6-body trick. Concern number 3 was that they needed to get to Toby as fast as possible, and every moment they wasted here was a moment where their fellow ninja were dying. Concern number 4, he thought a lot about how to restrain someone who was immortal and didn't run out of chakra, but knew that it would be pretty damn hard. He was considering leaving his shadow clone here as a distraction while they all moved on, when shit. Hinata swore. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuckity fuck. What's up? Naruto looked across. Bad news. Hinata grimaced, looking past Nagato, who was, respectfully, staying silent and letting them talk, to something in the distance only she could see. Naruto, can you and B handle this? Naruto could feel chakra signatures from the direction she was looking, but didn't know who they belonged to. Probably. Why? What's trust me? She told him. Me and Sasuke need to go take care of this next one. Naruto blew out a breath, then nodded. Yeah, we can take him. Go. He focused on Nagato. Unless that's an issue for you, Pain? I meant to target the Jinchuriki. The Uzumaki shrugged. They're irrelevant. At another nod from Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata vanished. Then the 8 tails and the 9 tails squared off against the man with the Rinnegan. So, I got the feeling we'd sorted out our differences last we talked. Naruto called across. What's the deal, buckaroo? Obviously, I don't want to do this. Nagato replied, calmly. I'm only talking to you because my summoner is allowing me a limited amount of pre-match banter. But there's going to be a match, as much as I don't want to attack either of you. Any idea who the summoner is? B asked. No. But I only have one suspect, Toby. An old ally of mine. We founded the Akatsuki together. Nagato held out one hand. He looked weak and small beneath his simple, dark red robe. But anyone who had seen what happened to Konoha could tell that was a terrible underestimation to make. Our time is up. Please do not let me kill you. I have no idea what he plans to do with the weapon if he completes it. Don't die? Naruto grinned, putting his hands together. Noted. I kicked your ass before, and I've only gotten stronger since then. Let's make this quick. Shadow Seal, there was a flash, and Naruto felt a sharp stab of pain as a small needle-thin part of his stomach started complaining. He noticed the red laser beam extending from a hatch on Nagato's shoulder, saw in horror that it was punching right through his gut, and then threw himself to the side as the laser rapidly drew a line upwards to his brain. He was barely able to move so that it only tore in a curve across his upper torso and out above his shoulder, and growled in anguish as he landed in a roll, now that there was now a giant cut almost bisecting him. Try harder, please. Nagato incentivized, the laser vanishing. I won't be able to deliberately target a non-lethal area again. Naruto spat. Kyuubi? On it. I've been waiting for a rematch against this guy. Naruto's cloak burst into life, his body healing the damage within moments, and he stood up, giving Killer Bee a quick nod. All right then. We're taking this seriously. Hinata and Sasuke didn't have to run for long before they encountered their own opponents. They both stopped, balancing on tree branches and looking out towards the two reanimated ninja facing them. Oh, you've got to be chorus Sasuke and Hinata. Shitting me. Finished Neji and Itachi. Seriously, of course this would happen. Sasuke groaned. I mean, it's just the laws of dramatic storytelling at this point, right? This is being done by a little twink called Kabuto Yakushi, and I'm pretty sure that's the only reason, yes. Itachi replied, before smiling brightly. Also, hi bro. Hi Hinata. Hi. Wait, Kabuto is the one doing this? Hinata suppressed a snort. Seriously? Seriously. Neji rolled his black, broken eyes that still held his Byakugan in perfect condition. The guy completely lost it when you killed his boss. I should have gone and murdered him, but I didn't think his sage training was going to go anywhere. And his eyes dropped to the floor. Hello, Hinata. It's been a few weeks. Yeah, it has. Hinata paused. This certainly wasn't a conversation she'd expected to be having. I know about Hanabi. Neji flinched. Is she safe? Itachi asked. She is, yes. We straightened some things out with Tonari. Hinata inhaled, deeply. I've forgiven you, just so you know. Both of you. It took me far longer than it should have, but really? Neji looked up at her. Hinata, you know I never expected you to, I know. I'm sure. Hinata nodded. The simple fact of the matter is I can't say I wouldn't have done the same. Or, well, I might have done something worse, but I've been turning it over and over in my head for weeks, and I can't think of a better way I would have handled it. Try doing that for a decade or more. Itachi chuckled. We had a couple of ideas eventually, but, well. Dwelling on the past isn't going to help anyone. We're sorry. Neji switched in. So sorry for what we put you all through. Oh, come on. Sasuke laughed. We're ninja. It's in the job description. So Itachi fell into a fighting stance. Fanservice sibling battle? Sasuke looked across at Hinata, nodded, and did the same. Fanservice sibling battle. Prepare to die. Die again. Yeah, no, we get it. Tsunade heard her tent flap open and groaned. If you're not my elite guard, I don't give a shit, now's not the time. On the contrary, Lady Hokage, I think you'll have to make time. Tsunade recognized the voice, growled, and spun on Konan. The blue-haired woman stood unmoving in her doorway. Listen, honey, the Hokage managed through gritted teeth, great to see you here, but I absolutely cannot make time. Shit's gone fucking crazy out there. We've got an army of green men and an army of Naruto and an army of undead, and frankly our army is starting to look a little flimsy. Right now Anoki and one of the Naruto clones are out there, and literally Madara, aka the scariest Uchiha to ever live, aka the fucking unstoppable god of death, aka my granddad's boyfriend, is on the battlefield. The 5 Kage are assembling to fight him, and I need to get a flying Raijin jump in there right the fuck now. Whatever this is, it can wait. Konan inclined her head. All right. If they want 5 Kage, they'll have them. I'll take your place. I'm strong enough, and I suppose as the leader of my hidden village, I would be Amikage or some such. That's not how the naming system works. Tsunade threw her arms in the air. Sure, technically the leaders of Hidden Grass, Waterfall, Sound, before it had been outed as a terrorist organization, were considered Kage, but not proper Kage, just whatever, not important. And even if so, why don't we just both go? She pointed out. What could possibly be important enough that I wouldn't? Konan stepped to the side. A figure walked through the doorway. Tsunade froze. Then threw herself forwards, fist outstretched. Memories of Pain. Naruto had fought Pain before. Pain was a tricky little bastard. Pain was 6 individual bodies, all moving independently, all of which had completely different powers. One could summon giant monsters, one could nullify your ninjutsu, one could even bring the others back to life if you destroyed them. Pain was utterly overwhelming to face if you didn't know how he worked, and even with intel from the toads and slugs, even going in with weeks of prep, Pain had still been the most difficult fight of Naruto's life. Without Sage Mode, it would have been impossible. He'd brought in 3 of the strongest toads of Mount Myaboku to counter the animal summons, then checked to send Jutsu Raisin Shuriken at Deva. Preta had tried to absorb it, but been turned into a statue by the Sage Chakra and torn to shreds by the rest of the technique, so that was him down. Deva had pulled Naruto towards Human and Naraka, who had been more than happy to close to melee with him. At least until he demonstrated his frog kata, which let him punch their heads off without resorting to the physical contact their insta-kills needed, taking them both out before they could react. After that, he was left facing the other 3 without any tricks left. Azura had had a ridiculous array of missiles and lasers. Deva could cancel out Naruto's ranged attacks with his force powers, and Animal was mostly useless, except that he could summon the others to him and thus move them around the field and defend himself. Naruto had burned through almost all his Sage Chakra before noticing the 5-millisecond gap in the Shinra Tensei and moving to exploit it, and in the end he had only been able to take out 5 of the 6 before ending up paralyzed by Deva's black rods. Now, Naruto was stronger. Faster. He wasn't well enough synced with the Kyuubi to try and add Senjutsu into the mix, but that just meant could freely summon a bunch of shadow clones if he needed to, allowing him to turn the numbers advantage against the 6 paths. Naruto was confident he could beat Pain. But fighting Pain was nothing like fighting Nagato. On your left. He shouted, as a Bancho Tenin pulled him in, and B jumped backwards firing a water bullet, but Nagato caught the thing and absorbed it with one hand, while the other stretched out to grab the leg Naruto tried to kick with, and then he felt a tug and that's my soul. There was a separate tugging, and he gave into that one, and a shadow clone swapped places with him, leaving him safe in the trees while it was immediately consumed. Buffeting wind! Shouted Naruto, along with another few clones, and the gale he produced was sufficient to tear a giant gash into the forest, uprooting trees and hurling rocks through the air. Nagato didn't even say anything, but the Shinra Tensei defense blasted to life, leaving him unharmed. He turned on Naruto and charged towards him, firing a barrage of missiles from slots that appeared from his shoulders, which unerringly tracked his fleeing opponents. Single-body Nagato was fucking broken. He was undead, and unkillable, which meant that even that one time a clone had plowed a Rasengan through his head, it hadn't so much as slowed him down. And since he wasn't going to die from ability overuse like Nagato was in life, and had, unlimited chakra, he was capable of fighting with his original body. Which, Naruto noticed, was even faster than Deva had been. Oh, and also he could use all of his abilities from one body. Seriously, this wasn't fair. No any ceiling jutsu? Naruto shouted to B, batting a few missiles away in annoyance. Physical damage is useless. A few. B shouted. But I'd need him to be stuck in place for whole seconds to pull any off. You? Hell no. Unless you count the Naruto's eyes widened. Yes. I can suppress him. Get ready, you'll have your time. That said, he ran back towards Nagato, forming hand seals. QB. I can't throw the Raisin Shuriken without Sage Mode. Any ideas? I can't give you a Bijou Bomb unless we're fully merged, which is the only thing causing the problem. But I can do this. A pair of glowing golden arms extended out from Naruto's back and stretched forwards. Naruto focused his chakra through the arms and they came together, forming a Raisin Shuriken between them and plowing it into the incoming Nagato. The Shinra Tensei fired, obliterating the technique, and then not a moment later Nagato was holding his hands out to catch the big ball Rasengan barrage. Being dropped on him by a set of a dozen clones jumping in, staggered to hit right after the Raisin Shuriken had. One Mississippi, a third QB arm thrust forwards, and while the Naraka path was capable of absorbing that, there wasn't anything it could do to stop the large boulder the arm had picked up and was propelling forwards at rapid speed. Two Mississippi, the boulder smashed into and through Nagato's right arm, separating it from his body, and with the arm went the Naraka's technique it had been employing. Three Mississippi, the clones had been feeding chakra constantly into the Rasengan to keep up the pressure, and now the right half of them suddenly found that they were able to press forwards and shove through to Nagato's body, tearing the entire right side of him into dust. For Mississippi, the clones that had moved through stretched their arms out and fired golden chains at Nagato, still regenerating back, as did the original charging in from the front, and the adamantine links wrapped around the Uzumaki's body just as 5 Mississippi cooldowns over, and nothing happened. The other half of Nagato's body remained unrepaired, the golden links biting into his undead flesh and countering the regeneration. Filing that away for later. But more importantly, they were nullifying his ultimate defense move. The other half of the clones who'd been keeping up the Rasengans pushed forwards with no chakra absorption or universal push to stop them. They tore off Pain's other arm, then joined the rest of the gang in chaining him up so much he was barely visible beneath the yellow-green glow. Now, B. Naruto shouted, but B had already body flickered right up to Nagato, wielding a scroll of some kind. The captive struggled for all he was worth, but couldn't match Naruto's strength, and then B was throwing the scroll around him and making hand seals, and then the scroll began to glow, and then Nagato stretched out a robot arm and B died. Wait, what? Wait, what? Naruto blinked, as suddenly B was collapsing backwards and something exploded on Nagato's body, blowing him up, but also obliterating the chains, and Naruto desperately tried to recall what had just happened, because something had to be wrong here. But his senses hadn't lied to him. A mechanical arm had manifested out of Pain's arm socket, and grabbed B around the face. B, busy with the ritual, hadn't had the time to react, and Nagato had fired a laser from the hand's palm, searing a hole through B's brain and killing him instantly. Naruto had sensed the moment all of the emotions in B's head simply stopped. But that's not fair. He didn't get a chance to. I never learned his real name. B's corpse exploded into broiling fire before it even hit the ground, and Gyuki, already disintegrating, for that is what demon beasts do when their hosts are killed, burst out into the physical world, roaring in anguish. You dare, it began, but Nagato had already reformed completely. He stretched out a hand and hurled a set of black chakra receivers at the Bijou. Naruto charged in, but another Shinra Tensei threw him back as Gyuki was pinned hopelessly to the floor. Another flick of Pain's will, and some giant stone thing appeared, and the Eight Tails chakra was channeled through the rods and into the body of the statue. Geto Mazo! Echoed the Kyuubi's voice in Naruto's head. Brother, no! That more than anything, the Nine Tails in a genuine panic, kicked Naruto's brain into function again. His hands flew, and he substituted with a tree branch, teleporting himself right past Pain and jumping straight onto Gyuki's gradually shrinking body. He reached down and yanked free one of the chakra receivers, hissing as it burned against his skin and throwing it away. Then there was a pull on his gut as the Bansho Tenon sent him flying back away from the beast. No, he sent out more of the Kyuubi arms as he was pulled away, the claws digging into the red-orange chakra in some desperate event to win a tug-of-war with the fucking Rinnegan magic. The chakra seemed to latch onto his own, and he felt something absorbed into his own system, but then it was gone. The statue vanished out of existence again, and Naruto was left to crash onto the floor next to B's body. The process had taken less than a second. Gyuki was gone. I'm sorry. Nagato told him hoarsely. I tried to warn you, but Kabuto took direct control of me. The Azure Path is mechanical, not a jutsu. It isn't affected by Naruto's Kyuubi-enhanced fist crashed into his face with a thunderclap. Pain's body almost completely disintegrated, the individual flakes of dust all being hurled backwards hundreds of feet as they tried to reassemble. Stop fucking killing my mentors! Naruto screamed, eyes red, tears falling down his cheeks. You fucking asshole! I'm so sorry. I wish it was anyone else that he used as a weapon for this. Nagato regenerated, returning to a fighting stance. Then he frowned. When was the previous time? I brought Kakashi back to life, didn't I? The ground under Naruto cracked. Jiraiya, you dipshit. You killed Jiraiya. Slowly, Nagato's head tilted to the side. What? No, I didn't. Naruto's mouth opened in outrage and froze, as he felt something familiar. Not familiar as in he'd felt it with his Kyuubi senses before, he'd only awakened it that blooming morning, and only got a good sensing of 4 or 5 people. But the particular blend of emotions approaching rapidly from behind him, he recognized it immediately. No way. He whispered. There was a blur, and 3 figures appeared before him, facing Nagato. The one on the left was blonde, curvaceous and angry. The one on the right was dark-haired, thick-skinned and pale. Naruto couldn't actually feel anything from him. And in the middle Jiraiya turned around and grinned. Hey, little Minato. How's it going? Naruto's jaw dropped. Really? Tsunade rolled her eyes at him. Kid thinks you've been dead for weeks, and the first thing you say when you meet him is comparing him to someone else? What's he gonna think? Yes, Orochimaru remarked, dryly, because the Lady Tsunade is notoriously good at understanding the complexities of interaction. Like that time it took her 3 decades to realize her attendant wanted into her pants. Oh, like you can talk, Orochi still can't talk to girls, Maru. Naruto couldn't do anything but make a high-pitched squeak. How he coughed, tried again. How are you all alive? Oh, isn't that a story? Jiraiya sighed. Okay, so basically weeks ago, alright then, let's get the horrible betrayal out of the way. The chaos Hinata was able to hear was barely recognizable, but she was fully aware that it ended with none of her shadow clones present in the room. No more chakra flowed into her body, and her brain began to throb. I may have miscalculated slightly. She thought, dimly. There was another sigh, and she heard Orochimaru come to lean on her bed. So. He began. Let's talk. She, quite obviously, didn't reply. Yes, great question, why aren't you already dead? He continued. Truth is there was a pause. And then, the chakra flow was back. Orochimaru's, his palm on her wrist. I have absolutely no idea. Wait, what's going on? Well, that's a lie, you'll notice I'm good at those. It's just that the mixture of thoughts leading to me not currently running through the hand seals to steal your defenseless body is confusing. I'm not usually one who struggles to understand his own thoughts, but you, Hinata Hyuuga, are a very puzzling girl. She heard him sigh. His voice didn't seem quite as lackadaisical as usual. I know that you know what it's like to lose family. You of course focused on the rage, as did I, when I first lost my parents. Now you could continue to chase that until it kills you, but I imagine that eventually you'll realize you're all out of things to be angry at. And you'll sit there and be empty. I cannot stress enough how terrifying the emptiness is. The final aftermath of death, the dark twin of acceptance. Death is real. It has taken those I loved, and one day it will take me, and eventually there will be nothing. No feeling, no awareness, not even blackness, just. And that's where the thought process ends, for the human mind cannot model the absence of a model. It cannot empathize with emptiness. But it can be afraid. And it will try to fill that hole with anything it can. Anger, lust, greed, some objective or another, he chuckled. I mean, learn every jutsu? What ridiculous kind of goal is that? I just needed something, anything to focus on. At first I wanted to conquer death, to finally end the thing that had taken so much from me and my friends, but eventually I gained a power that would force me to choose. To choose to avoid that blackness myself, by sacrificing another to it. And oh, how I was afraid I'm rambling, my apologies, I haven't even gotten to the main point. Here's the thing, Hinata, you arrived in my presence with a smile on your face. A fake smile, obviously, but one so earnestly put in place. Whatever thoughts were running through your head at the time, you concluded that you were willing to expend effort to make the people around you happier. And it worked, you little shit. You made me care about you. She could practically hear him rolling his eyes, but was a little more preoccupied with the fact that she began to regain feeling in her extremities. He continued. Pathetic, right? Me? Getting paternal instincts over the little murder child who I had every intention to consume? When it was almost definitely deliberate on your part. But I couldn't help it. You remind me of me when I was your age, young, talented, and oh so broken. You remind me that, yes, people who are alive are doing that alive thing for a reason. And now I genuinely can't bring myself to kill you. He paused. Her body started to feel hot, and she had the distinct impression of each of her chakra points popping into activity one by one. So here's the plan. He leaned closer. I have shit I need to get done. It will be easier to do if people think I'm dead. You need to go murder your cousin, and frankly, I think you'll do a better job of that than I will. So how about I drop a bunch of dead snakes about the room, you go out there and stop Kabuto killing your girlfriend, and we both go our separate ways? 1 second, 2 seconds, and then Hinata's body exploded into action. She snapped upright, and she could see an Orochimaru was backed up into the corner of the room eyeing her warily, and Karen was getting beaten up by Kabuto outside. Right, time limit, gotta deal with that. She focused on Orochimaru, still thinking. Then asked, you know what it's like to make mistakes, don't you? He nodded. I've made many. My greatest was leaving Konoha. And somehow, she knew that he believed it was true. Yeah. She replied. Me too. She put her hands together and bowed. Thank you for the training, sensei. He smiled. Thank you for the birthday presents. She straightened, shook herself out, and turned around to punch a hole in the door. Some days later, the area around Hidden Rain was admittedly kind of fucked up. To cut a long story short, some forest land had been very quickly renovated into a new extension to the lake. Atop that lake, Pain held Jiraiya of the Sannin by the throat, eyes blazing with rage. You have no idea of the suffering I have, oh, monologuing. Yes. Jiraiya choke laughed. Let me guess, you also enjoy staring dramatically into the middle distance and pondering the meaning of life. Pain choke slammed Jiraiya onto the water's surface. His face broke under, and Pain held him there, head submerged, until bubbles started to rise. Then, after another moment, he pulled him up again and threw him across the lake's surface. Half dead, coughing up seawater, Jiraiya was barely able to tread water, never mind stand on the surface. He was, however, cognizant enough to wonder how the hell he was still alive. You are, Pain declared, without question, the most irritating, obnoxious, childish, pathetic creature I have ever laid my eyes on. I'm getting that quote framed. Jiraiya was able to cough out, oxygen slowly chasing away the blind spots that had formed in his eyes. That is officially the closest I've ever brushed with death. Second is that time Tsunade hit me, third is that time Naruto accidentally let out 4 tails on me. To think I once admired you. Pain shook his head. Here you are, facing your own death, and instead of doing so with any semblance of honor, you use your final words to squawk like a baby. With no goal other than to piss me off. So does that mean it? Yes, it worked. Pain walked forwards and grabbed Jiraiya's hair, pulling him up out of the water. And all you have done is bred more of your own suffering. He tilted his head. What is the name of the Nine Tails host? Naruto Uzumaki? Tired as he was, Jiraiya didn't have the discipline to stop his eyes widening. "Ah, yes, he's your pupil, isn't he?" Pain mused. "You know, I've been avoiding a full-scale assault on Konoha, seeing if I could snatch the Kyuubi some other way. Not out of any fear of failure, of course, merely concerned that if I did, knowledge of my power's mechanics might spread. But I'm upset. So that's out of the window now. What's also out of the window is your chance of getting a quick death." He leaned in, lifting Jiraiya's chin with his other hand so he could look into the older man's eyes. "I'm going to kill him. And your Hokage, Tsunade. And I'm going to raze your entire village to the ground. And then I'm going to send you a little genjutsu showing you absolutely everything I've done, and I assure you, the Rinnegan can capture events in exquisite detail. And then I'm going to briefly use Naruto, Tsunade, and a few choice others as my paths of pain. Because they are going to be the ones to walk into your cell and tell you you have failed. And then, using their bodies, I will kill you. Perhaps that will show you the true depths of the pain you act so unafraid of." "Nagato." Jiraiya panted. You do not have the right to use that name." Nagato spat. "But thank you for proving my point. When given the appropriate vision of pain, all facades fall away." Jiraiya took a deep breath, with his eyes closed. Then opened them and smiled. "No. I'm not afraid. He'll beat you. I'm certain. And if he leaves her alive, I'll get to tell Konan I told you so." Pain tensed and Jiraiya's smile widened. "Oh ho. Looks like that's what you're afraid of." Nagato didn't respond. The Rinnegan flashed, and Jiraiya knew no more. 8 days later, Jiraiya looked up as Konan entered his room. He wasn't restrained, at least not sufficiently. The only thing that had been keeping him in place was a genjutsu placed on him by Nagato, completely screwing with his ability to move anything beneath his head. When that genjutsu had suddenly broken earlier that day, he'd suspected what had happened, but Konan's face when she looked at him was confirmation. "I'm sorry," he said. Somehow he didn't feel like going with "I told you so." "I believe you," she replied, simply. A small paper bird flew out from beneath her robes, coming over to him and removing the cuffs on his hands that he could have broken free of hours ago. "Nagato is dead, no leaf casualties. Mangekyo has officially surrendered to Konoha. Some of their agents are here now." "Am I being taken back home?" Jiraiya asked. "They probably think I'm dead." "They do think you're dead. They're asking for your body to be returned." Konan paused. "I would like to tell them that it has been lost or destroyed." Jiraiya frowned. He was out of shape, but when you're alone in a cell, there's not much to do besides gather sage chakra. He knew he could take Konan if he had to. "Why would I let you do that? Given that I am, last I checked, still alive. Nagato is dead, but his eyes are intact." Konan replied, frankly. "I've tried to destroy the Rinnegan. Can't. And I know someone who is definitely coming for them. While I am alone, he will succeed. You want me to help protect your husband's eyeballs?" Jiraiya deadpanned. "Konan, there are people I need to let know I am okay. The world believes you dead." She replied. "You're a ninja. You know how powerful a position that is. The war isn't over, Jiraiya, it's only just beginning." He rolled his eyes. "Kami, you're such an anime character. I'm telling Naruto and Tsunade. You can't stop me. They can keep a secret, if they have to. Tsunade is in a coma." Konan replied. "And I already told Naruto that there was someone he needed to come here and see." "Did you tell him explicitly that it was me?" Jiraiya checked. "No." She frowned. "I told him implicitly, but so obviously that any ninja of genin-level common sense would immediately put together what I meant." "Oh fuck. He doesn't know." Jiraiya sighed and leaned backwards. "Great. Guess we'll send him a paper bird or something. Is he still in Konoha?" "Actually, my little friends tell me he's out on a mission." Conan informed him, breezily. Oh yeah, what's he doing? Well, I could be misinterpreting, she frowned, but I'm pretty sure he's trying to tear apart the established power structure of the entire ninja world. A few days later, Orochimaru, alone in the woods, blinked as the Kotoa Mitsukami was released, and said, "Yo, holy shit." Then he paused, and thought through exactly what it was that he had been forced to do by it. He recalled, once again, that leaving the village had been an objectively terrible idea. Then he went, "Oh, you sly son of a bitch, that was why." 2 weeks after that, Conan stepped aside. A figure walked through the doorway. Tsunade froze. Then threw herself forwards, fist outstretched. Jiraiya caught it in his palm. There had been no strength behind it, and she immediately collapsed into him, as he wrapped his arms around her back. "What the fuck?" she cried, burying her face in his chest to compensate for the fact that she was screaming as loud as she could. "Why the fuck did you pretend you were dead? To me. You swore, that if you ever went that deep undercover you would tell me I tried." He told her, simply. "Pain caught me, by the time I was free you were in a coma, and by the time you were out of the coma I was a little too preoccupied." "With what?" she screamed. She was sagged against him, relief filling her to the point where she wasn't sure she could carry her own weight if she had to. "What could possibly be so important you could delay telling me for 1 single second?" Said a familiar voice from just outside the tent. "That, I believe, would be me." Suddenly, Tsunade found she could support her own weight after all. She shoved Jiraiya out of the way and charged out the door, and him grabbing her arm was the only thing that stopped her punching a hole through the lying, scheming, treacherous Hai. Said Orochimaru, smiling. "You fucking bastard, Tsunade, it wasn't his fault, he didn't. What the fuck are you doing here?" "Repenting." Orochimaru pointed at his forehead. "See, I'm wearing my leaf headband, I'm a good guy now." "Your headband, which still has the slash in it from when you betrayed us." Tsunade pointed at it. "You can't just be a good guy again, you were doing experiments on kids, because you wanted to be immortal." "Wrong." Orochimaru beamed. "I was doing experiments on kids because Danzo wanted would release." You that made Tsunade stop and think. "Are you saying Kotoa Mitsukami?" Orochimaru nodded. "Insidious little bastard." Danzo was on his quest into genetics long before he first started messing around with the Uchiha's eyeballs. Jiraiya explained. "Remember that Orochimaru was the first person to manage an eye transplant from a dojutsu to a clanless ninja? Danzo wanted him to try and replicate Hashirama's DNA in other people. See if he could create an army of would-release super ninja. I said no." Orochimaru told Tsunade. "At first, anyway. But then one day he came along with this lovely young man, Shursui Uchiha. This was before he put the kid's eyeball in himself, of course. And suddenly, I think kidnapping children to use in experiments is a swell plan. Seriously, even if I was totally evil, it was just a really stupid idea. I'm not promising I've never done anything immoral. I'm still pretty fucked up. But I am on your side. Why should I believe you?" Tsunade narrowed her eyes at him. "You've only convinced Jiraiya because it's exactly what he's wanted to hear for over a decade." "Hey, that's fair, actually." "Well, you can get Hinata to check whether I'm lying when we meet up with her." Orochimaru pointed out. "But I'm afraid we don't have that much time. This Madara fellow is about to tear this whole planet a new one and we need to stop him. Madara is on the battlefield right now." Tsunade pointed out. "Where I should be." "No, Madara's reanimated corpse is on the battlefield right now." Orochimaru tooted. "Keep up. The man who was pretending to be him is out there in the shadows, and he's what we need to be worried about." He leveled a steady gaze at her. "Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata are in danger, Sunny." Tsunade clenched her fists. She looked across at Jiraiya, then back to Orochimaru. Tried to quash the small part of herself that was absolutely ecstatic that they were all stood together without trying to kill each other. "Fine. Where are we going?" Now wow. That was really concise, well done. Tsunade remarked. Thank you. Jiraiya smiled. Now then he turned back to Nagato. Payback time. Be careful. Naruto warned. He's stronger than he was when he kicked our asses. Perhaps. Orochimaru added. But then, he was fighting individuals. Now, he faces the best team Konoha has ever produced. Little Vayne, Roki. Tsunade pointed out. Oh, like you weren't thinking it. Naruto, go ahead. Jiraiya told his student, who was currently just stood there looking awestruck. Catch up with your friends. Nagato Uzumaki is our problem, it's about time we dealt with him. Got it. Naruto nodded. He turned to go, but paused. Hey, pervy sage? Yeah. Jiraiya looked back. Naruto smiled. It's really good to see you. Likewise. Now go kick ass. Naruto fled into the forest. As one, the legendary Sannin prepared to enter battle for the first time in almost 20 years.
Thank you for your views, likes, subscriptions, and overall support of my ongoing efforts to bring great content to all of you. Check out my Patreon for more mature fanfiction. The link is in the description and like everywhere on my channel.